Oh, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, today we are seeing the blessings of Radha Madhav, Radha Krishna, Radha Shyam Sundar Krishna Balaram, Gauritai, Srila Prabhupada, Gurudev, to continue with the third canto, 7th chapter. And this 7th chapter is entitled Further Inquiries by Vidur. The third canto is a little bit technical in the sense that it describes the creation process, which is, as we can imagine, to create anything is challenging, but to create a whole universe is a different ball game. So, of course, without the Lord's glance, without the Lord's permission and touch, nothing happens. So, principally, that is the most important ingredient in terms of the creation, because the glance of the Lord awakens various consciousnesses, including our own consciousness. So this is very, very important. So,
no problem, she is coming.
No problem. So, Jigna, would you like to read the translations?
Definitely, yes, Prabhuji.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so we can start in a second. Let me just pause this.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Narayanaaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Bruvanam Maitreyam Dvaipayana Suto Buddhaha Prinayan Iva Bharatya Vidurah Kratya Bhashata. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, while Maitreya, the great sage, was thus speaking, Vidura, the learned son of Dvaipayana Vyasa, expressed a request in a pleasing manner by asking this question. Vidura uvacha Brahman katham bhagavatash chinmatrasya vikarinah leelaya chapi yujyeran nirgunasya guna kriyah. Shri Vidura said, O great Brahmana, since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the complete spiritual whole and is unchangeable, how is he connected with the material modes of nature and their activities? If this is his pastime, how do the activities of the unchangeable take place and exhibit qualities without the mode of nature? Kridayam udyamorбhasya kamashikridishanyatah svatastryptasya cha katham nivritasya sadanyatah. Boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys or with various diversions because they are encouraged by desire. But there is no possibility of such desire for the Lord because he is self-satisfied and detached from everything at all times. Asrakshid Bhagavan Vishwam Gunamayatma Mayaya Taya Samsthapayat Yetad Bhuyah Pratyapidhasyati. By his self-sheltered potency of the three modes of material nature, the Lord has caused the creation of this universe. By her, he maintains the creation and conversely dissolves it again and again. Deshatah kalato yosa avasthatah svatonyatah अविलुप्तावबोधात्मा स युज्येता जया कथम्.
The pure soul is pure consciousness and is never out of consciousness, either due to circumstances, time, situation, dreams, or other causes. How then does he become engaged in nuisance?
भगवान् एक एवैष सर्वक्षेत्रेष्वस्थितः अमुष्य दुर्भगत्वं वा क्लेशो वा कर्मभिः कुतः.
The Lord, as the Supersoul, is situated in every living being's heart. Why then do the living entities' activities result in misfortune and misery?
एतस्मिन् मे मनो विद्वन् खिद्यते ज्ञानसङ्कटे तन्न पराणुद विभो कश्मलं मानसं महत्.
O great and learned one, my mind is greatly illusioned by the distress of this nuisance, and I therefore request you to clear it up.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Wonderful questions, really important questions as well. How does the Lord deal with the temporary material nature? So with those questions about Ishwar and Jiva, Vidura asks Maitreya Rishi about some apparent contradictions in the relationship between the Lord, living entities, and material nature. Does the Lord become entangled? Right? He's messing about with the three modes of material nature. So does he become entangled himself? How does the Lord, who is unchangeable, perform actions that indicate change? He's unchangeable. Yeah, he's always there. He's always eternally the same. So how does he deal with that which changes all the time? And how does the pure living entity, because that's essentially, we are pure consciousness, pure souls. How do we become bewildered? And in spite of the Lord's presence in our hearts, he's there as Paramatma, yet we're still in illusion. How's this all happen? So, so next is up to text number 14.
Okay, Prabhuji. श्रीशुक उवाच स इत्थं चोदितः क्षत्रा तत्त्वजिज्ञासुना मुनिः तस्याह भगवच्चित्तः स्मयन् इव गतस्मयः.
Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Maitreya, being thus agitated by the inquisitive Vidura, at first seemed astonished, but then he replied to him without hesitation, since he was fully God conscious.
मैत्रेय उवाच सेयं भगवतो माया यन्नयेन विरुध्यते ईश्वरस्य विमुक्तस्य कार्पण्यमुत बन्धनम्.
Sri Maitreya said, certain conditioned soul put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is overcome by illusion or Maya, and at the same time, they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic.
यदर्थेन विनामुष्य पुंस आत्मविपर्ययः प्रतीयत उपद्रष्टुः स्वशिरश्छेदनादिकः.
The living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off.
यथा जले चन्द्रमसः कम्पादिस्तत्कृतो गुणः दृश्यते सन्नपि द्रष्टुरात्मनो नात्मनो गुणः.
As the moon reflected on water appears to the seer to tremble due to being associated with the quality of the water, so the self-associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter.
स वै निवृत्तिधर्मेण वासुदेवानुकम्पया भगवद्भक्तियोगेन तिरोधत्ते शनैरिह.
But that misconception of self-identity can be diminished gradually by the mercy of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, through the process of devotional service to the Lord in the mode of detachment.
यदेन्द्रियोपरामोथ द्रष्ट्रात्मनि परे हरौ विलीयन्ते तदा क्लेशाः संसुप्तस्येव कृत्स्नशः.
When the senses are satisfied in the seer super soul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in him, all miseries are completely vanished, as after a sound sleep.
अशेषसङ्क्लेशशमं विधत्ते गुणानुवादश्रवणं मुरारेः. किं वा पुनस्तच्चरणारविन्द परागसेवारतिरात्मलब्धा.
Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, etc. of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained attraction for serving the flavor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet?
What a wonderful verse this is. Simply by chanting and hearing his names, one can achieve, get out of this miserable condition. What to speak of those who've attained attraction for serving the Lord's lotus feet. So let's have a quick look at right. So Maitreya answers. So the question was, how can the living entity become bewildered, and why does the Lord become bewildered? Maitreya answers that it's illogical to say that the Lord is overcome by illusion, and yet he is unconditioned. Unconditioned means not conditioned by the three modes of material nature. So it can't make sense because he's actually in charge of the three modes of nature. He's the creator of them. So he's not going to be influenced by them. And the tiny living entities, although overwhelmed, we are the same as the Lord in one sense, but we're tiny. This is the point, tiny. And then therefore we can become overwhelmed by ignorance. And what is our ignorance? We're identifying with this body as if it is eternal. It is as if it is us, but it's not. The body is just the covering. We are inside the body. Just like inside the car is the driver. The driver and the car are not the same, but they're different. So in the same way, we are different from the body. And sometimes you have some really crazy dreams, you're flying and so many other things happening. But as soon as you wake up, you realize, oh, hey, that was only a dream. So we're in that sort of dream condition at the moment. But this dream is very, very real, although it's temporary. So the soul, living entity, involved by ignorance, can become happy by chanting the Lord's glories and becoming forever freed from unlimited miserable conditions. And what's the solution? Simple: bhakti, devotion, having association with the Supreme Lord and his devotees. So next is up to text number 20.
Okay, Prabhuji. Vidula uvacha sanchinn samshayo mahyam tava suktasina vibhu ubhayatrapi bhagavan mano me sampradhavati.
Vidura said, O powerful sage, my lord, all my doubts about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities have now been removed by your conceiving words. My mind is now perfectly entering into them.
Sadhvetad vyahritam vidvan atma mayayanam harehe abhatya patham nirmulam विश्वमूलं न यद्बहिः
O learned sage, your explanations are very good, as they should be. Disturbances to the conditioned soul have no basis than the movement of the external energy of this Lord.
यश्च मूढतमो लोके यश्च बुद्धे परं गतः तावुभौ सुखमेधेते क्लिश्यत्यन्तरितो जनः
Both the lowest of fools and he who is transcendental to all intelligence enjoy happiness, whereas persons between them suffer the material pangs.
अर्थाभावं विनिश्चित्य प्रतीतस्यापि नात्मनः तां चापि युष्मच्चरण सेवयाहं पराणुदे.
But, my dear sir, I'm obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I'm confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea.
यत्सेवया भगवतः कूटस्थस्य मधुद्विषः रतिरासो भवेत् तीव्रः पादयोर्व्यसनार्दनः.
By serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is the unchangeable enemy of the Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distress.
दुरापाह्यल्पतपसः सेवा वैकुण्ठवर्त्मसु यत्रोपगीयते नित्यं देवदेवो जनार्दनः.
Persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees who are progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, Vaishnav Seva. Vidur expresses appreciation for Maitri Rishi's explanations. He explains that both the lowest of fools and the transcendental saint enjoy happiness. So this is quite unusual. The fine line between ignorance and bhakti, or pure mode of goodness, is sometimes hard to distinguish. Right? The drunkard is very happy. Right? He's just out of his mind. The transcendental is also happy. He's out of his mind. But of course, his happiness is slightly different. Well, hugely different. His happiness is real happiness, whereas the happiness of the foolish, the ignorance, is not happiness at all, it's suffering. Whereas persons between them suffer the material pangs. He expresses his heartfelt desire to serve Maitri Rishi, his lotus feet, because Maitri Rishi is a pure devotee of the Lord, as is actually Vidur. And this is the competition that devotees sometimes have. They like to serve each other. And actually, it's very pleasing to the heart when that happens, and the Lord becomes very pleased. Because the service to devotees is very rare to obtain for one whose austerity is meager. And our austerity, there is hardly any. Right? We like to enjoy our senses and try to enjoy this material world, even if we're on the path of devotion. It's easy to get misled or stray away from the path. So we have to make the most of opportunities when they come, especially to serve devotees. Very important. So now he's got a ton of questions. So this is right up to text 38, Shruti.
Okay, Prabhuji. 38, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. सृष्ट्वाग्रे महदादीनि सविकाराण्यनुक्रमात् तेभ्यो विराजम् उद्धृत्य तमनुप्राविशाद्विभुः.
After creating the total material energy, the Mahatattva, and thereby manifesting the gigantic universal form with senses and sense organs, the Supreme Lord entered within it.
यम् आहुराद्यं पुरुषं सहस्राङ्घ्र्युरुबाहुकम् यत्र विश्व इमे लोकाः सविकाशं त आसते.
The Purusha incarnation lying on the causal ocean is called the original Purusha in the material creations. And in his Virat form, in whom all the planets and their inhabitants live, he has many thousands of legs and hands.
यस्मिन् दशविधः प्राणः सेन्द्रियार्थेन्द्रियस्त्रिवृत् त्वयेरितो यतो वर्णास् तद्विभूतिर्वदस्व नः.
O great Brahmana, you have told me that the gigantic Virat form and his senses, the sense objects, and the 10 kinds of life air exist with 3 kinds of life vigor. Now, if you will kindly explain to me the different powers of the specific divisions.
यत्र पुत्रैश्च पौत्रैश्च नप्तृभिः सह गोत्रजैः प्रजा विचित्राकृतय आसन्याभिरिदं ततम्.
Oh my Lord, I think that the process manifests in the forms of sons, grandsons, and family members has spread all over the universe in different varieties and species.
प्रजापतीनां सपतिश्चक्लिपेकान् प्रजापतीन् सर्गांश्चैवानुसर्गांश्च मनून्मन्वन्तराधिपान्.
O learned Brahmana, please describe how the leader of all the demigods, namely the Prajapati, Brahma, decided to establish the various Manus, the heads of the ages. Please describe the Manus also, and please describe the descendants of those Manus.
उपर्यधश्च ये लोका भूमेर्मित्रात्मजासते तेषां संस्थां प्रमाणं च भूलोकस्य च वर्णय.
O son of Mitra, kindly describe how the planets are situated above the earth as well as underneath it. And also please mention their measurements as well as their earthly planets, as well as that of the earthly planets, sorry.
तिर्यं मानुषदेवानां सरीसृपपतत्रिणां वदनः सर्गसंव्यूहं गार्भस्वेदद्विजोद्भिदाम्.
Also, please describe the living beings under different classifications. Subhuman, humans, those born of the embryo, those born of perspiration, those who are twice born, birds, and the plants and vegetables. Kindly describe their generations and subdivisions also.
गुणावतारैर्विश्वस्य सर्गस्थित्यप्ययाश्रयम् सृजतः श्रीनिवासस्य व्याचक्ष्वोदारविक्रमम्.
Also, please describe the incarnations of the material modes of nature, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, and please describe the incarnation of Supreme Personality of Godhead and his magnanimous activities.
वर्णाश्रमविभागांश्च रूपशीलस्वभावतः ऋषीणां जन्म कर्माणि वेदस्य च विकर्षणम्.
O great sage, kindly describe the divisions and orders of human society in terms of symptoms, behavior, and the characteristics of mental equilibrium and sense control. Also, please describe the births of the great sages and the categorical divisions of the Vedas.
यज्ञस्य च विधानानि योगस्य च पथः प्रभो नैष्कर्म्यस्य च साङ्ख्यस्य तन्त्रं वा भगवत् स्मृतम्.
Please also describe the expansions of different sacrifices and the paths of mystic powers, analytical study of knowledge, and devotional service, all with their respective regulations.
पाषण्डपथवैषम्यं प्रतिलोमनिवेशनम् जीवस्य गतयो याश्च यावतीर्गुणकर्मजाः.
Please also describe the imperfections and contradictions of the faithless atheists, the situation of crossbreeding, and the movements of the living entities in various species of life, according to their particular modes of nature and work.
धर्मार्थकाममोक्षाणां निमित्तान्यविरोधतः वार्ताया दण्डनीतेश्च श्रुतस्य च विधिं पृथक्.
You may also describe the non-contradictory causes of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation, and also the different means of livelihood and different processes of law and order, as mentioned in the revealed scriptures.
श्राद्धस्य च विधिं ब्रह्मन् पितॄणां सर्गमेव च ग्रहनक्षत्रताराणां कालावयवसंस्थितिम्.
Please also explain the regulations for offering respects to the forefathers, the creation of Pitraloka, the time schedule in the planets, stars, and luminaries, and their respective situations.
दानस्य तपसो वापि यच्चेष्टा पूर्तयो फलम् प्रवासस्थस्य यो धर्मो यश्च पुंस उतापदे.
Please also describe the fruitive results of charity and penance and of digging reservoirs of water. Please describe the situation of persons who are away from home and also the duty of a man in an awkward position.
येन वा भगवान् स्तुष्येद् धर्मयोनिर्जनार्दनः सम्प्रसीदति वा येषाम् एतद् आख्याहि मे नघ.
O sinless one, because the personality of Godhead, the controller of all living entities, is the father of all religion and those who are candidates for religious activities, kindly describe how he can be completely satisfied.
अनुव्रतानां शिष्याणां पुत्राणां च द्विजोत्तमम् अनापृष्टम् अपि ब्रूयुर्गुरवो दीनवत्सलाः.
O best among the Brahmanas, those who are spiritual masters are very kind to the needy. They are always kind to their followers, disciples, and sons. And without being asked by them, the spiritual master describes all that is knowledge.
तत्त्वानां भगवंस्तेषां कतिधा प्रतिसङ्क्रमः तत्प्रेमं क उपासीरन् क स्विदनुशेरते.
Please describe how many dissolutions there are for the elements of material nature and who survives after the dissolutions to serve the Lord while he is asleep.
पुरुषस्य च संस्थानं स्वरूपं वा परस्य च ज्ञानं च नैगमं यत्तद् Guru Shishya Prayojanam.
What are the truths regarding the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What are their identities? What are their specific values in the knowledge of the Vedas? And what are the necessities for the spiritual master and his disciplines?
Thank you so much. Wow, so many questions. And the next few chapters actually are dedicated to these questions. So now, a lot of the questions related to Visarga, which is the secondary creation, which Lord Brahma takes charge of course, as initiated by the Supreme Lord. Maitreya gives him a glimpse in chapters 5 and 6 about creation. So we looked at that in chapters 5 and 6. And Vidura inquires, regards this in more detail. And he inquired about Lord Brahma establishing the Manus, the planets also, and the planet situation and the measurements. So we'll see all this coming up in the next few chapters, so in a few cantos even. The questions are answered over many, 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 many chapters. The living beings under different classifications. So you've got subhumans, humans, those born of embryo, those born of perspiration, those who are twice born, birds. How's that? Twice born birds? Can't remember now. And the plants and vegetables. He also asked about Krishna's incarnations. So Bhagavatam describes all of them, a lot of them rather. Already many have been described, but there are more that are coming up. Organization of human society. How is it organized? So many people. How do you keep it law and order? And that's where Varnashram comes into play. The 4 social systems and the 4 spiritual systems. Yoga, Gyan, Yagya, sacrifice, and Sankhya. He inquires about their place in helping the soul re-establish its original position. Imperfections of the faithless. He's worried about, what about the faithless? What do they do? And the movement of the living beings in various species. Devotees are always concerned, the poor souls who are going to be here and there and everywhere, running around. So the devotees really have compassionate hearts. Religiously ordered life and regulations. The planet's time schedule, death rites, divisions of time. This is quite a big topic. Charity, austerity, sacrifice, and duties in different situations. And we see this in the Bhagavad Gita as well. In the different modes, these 3 have totally different realities to them. So very interesting to know those, so that we can make sure we do our charity, our austerity, sacrifice, duty in the right mode, right mood. How to satisfy Krishna, which is of course central question, and Bhagavatam is essentially talks about the way to satisfy him is bhakti. And right throughout the Bhagavatam, the themes that we keep coming back to is bhakti, bhakti, bhakti. Material dissolutions and who survives it? And I like that question. Who serves the Lord while he's asleep? Devotional service and knowledge of spiritual life and needs for Guru and Shishya. So these are all the different questions that Vidur asks in those. I think there was about 30 or so questions. So now it's up to the end.
Okay, Prabhu. निमित्तानि च तस्येह प्रोक्तान्यनघसूरिभिः स्वतो ज्ञानं कुतः पुंसां भक्तिर्वैराग्यमेव च एव वा.
Thoughtless devotees of the Lord have mentioned the source of such knowledge. How can one have knowledge of devotional service and detachment without the help of such devotees?
एतान् मे पृच्छतः प्रश्नान् हरेः कर्म विवित्सया ब्रूहि मेऽन्यस्य मित्रत्वात् अजया नष्टचक्षुषः.
My dear sage, I have put all these questions before you with the view of knowing the pastimes of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are the friend of all, so kindly describe them for all those who have lost their vision.
सर्ववेदाश्च यज्ञाश्च तपोदानानि चानघ जीवाभयप्रदानस्य न कुर्वीरन् कलाम् अपि.
O spotless one, your answers to all these questions will grant immunity from all material miseries. Such charity is greater than all Vedic charities, sacrifices, penances, etc.
श्रीशुक उवाच स इत्थम् आपृष्टपुराणकल्पः कुरु प्रधानेन मुनिप्रधान प्रवृद्धहर्षो भगवत्कथायां सञ्चोदितस्तं प्रहसन्निवाह. हरे
Shri
Krishna.
Sukha, sorry,
No, I just said Hare Krishna.
Shri Sukadeva Goswami said, thus the chief of the sages, who was always enthusiastic about describing topics regarding the personality of Godhead, began to narrate the descriptive explanation of the Puranas, being so infused by Vidura. He was very much enlivened by speaking on the transcendental activities of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. First class. Thank you so much, both of you. And let's just conclude this chapter. Vidu declares Maitreya as the friend of all, especially for all those who have lost their vision, and his answers will grant immunity from all material miseries. Such charity is greater than all Vedic charities, sacrifice, penances, etc. And he's absolutely right. These questions are actually for us, and the answers are for us, so that we can improve our consciousness and become much more aligned with the Supreme Lord than we are at this moment in time. This Bhagavatam is very, very special. And these questions are not normally asked anytime, anywhere. But we are very fortunate to have this incredible scripture that has been handed to us on a plate by Srila Prabhupada. Generally, these scriptures are not so easy to access, definitely not so easy to understand. But the way Srila Prabhupada has translated them and given his Bhaktivedanta purports is made it possible for us to understand these finer points on spiritual life, as explained through the Bhagavatam. And the Bhagavatam is regarded to be the highest of all the Puranas and highest of all the scriptures, because it deals with bhakti, it deals with Krishna. And it also deals with a lot of very challenging subjects, as we will see as we're going through it. But this has been made accessible to us, which is really, we are extremely fortunate. And we're also very fortunate that Shruti has been reciting this. She's away for a couple of months, so we'll miss her. But we also have Nanda Leela, who's extremely competent in reciting the verses. So I'm very pleased that we've got such a pool of talent of devotees. It's amazing, actually. It's Lord's blessing to us. So, Surinder, anything you'd like to add?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, and Hare Krishna, and Dandavad to all the Vaishnavas. Yes, Prabhu, interesting chapter, and so many questions and so many answers will follow. So, the basic understanding about spiritual knowledge is, first, we have to understand our true identity. which Gauranga Mahaprabhu explains as follows. Jivera Swarupa Hoy, Krishnera Nitya Das, 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 Anudas. This means we are spirit soul, servant of Krishna, and servant of Krishna's servant, like that. So this is our true identity. The problem begins because of false identity, also known as false ego, when we identify ourselves with our body, and then there is extended false ego, with identification with in the environment, like family members, society, etc. So then Lord Krishna says that there is a mountain range between those jiva souls and the Lord himself. For those who have false ego, they cannot approach the lotus feet of Krishna. There is a mountain range in between. And the false ego is this concept of I am this body, and the concept of I, me, mine. Yes. Whereas a path of bhakti is, it behooves that we realize that we are all servant of Hari, Guru, and Vaishnava. And when we are established in this mood of being servant of Hari, Guru, and Vaishnava, this is our proper identity, and from this point begins our spiritual journey and understanding of Krishna Katha. Yes, so, and also in this chapter, it refers to the Guna avatars, like Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. There are Guna avatars of the Lord, and Lord Brahma is in charge of the mode of passion, and Vishnu is in charge of mode of goodness, and Lord Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance, etc. So there are Guna avatars, Leela avatars, etc. But Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, Govindam Adipurusham Tamam Bhajami, is mentioned. And also it mentions like about some people approach the ghosts and spirits to get something in return, some benefits. Some approach the demigods to get some benefits. It is mentioned that Hitler, I have a book and it mentioned Hitler, he used this ghosts and spirits method like black magic. Yeah, he used it to find one of his ship which was lost. So he had a witch doctor, sort of, and he used his magical powers, black magic, to find that ship. So there are different energies. There's worshippers of ghosts. They're successful as well in their dimension and in their method to achieve something. And then we have worshippers of demigods. They get some benefits. They do pious deeds and get the fruits of their activities. And then we have the bhaktas, the devotees. And pure devotional service, it starts with Prahlad Maharaj. And therefore in Prahlad Maharaj mood, we do not expect anything in return, but only to serve Hari, Guru, and Vaishnava, and to please Hari, Guru, and Vaishnava. This is the path of Sudha Bhakti. And this is our prayer and aspiration. Hare Krishna, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Very well put. Very nicely put about the living entity as well, the actual constitutional position. Thank you. Any questions, any comments? Otherwise, we can close. And we'd like to wish Shruti a very safe journey to Bharat, and safe and quick journey. Okay, let's stop there. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Have a
Krishna.
safe journey.